live. Hello. Welcome. Oh my goodness. This is the first ever Another Way live. So I guess I should introduce myself first in case people don't know who I am. So thank you. Tony's been giving me a quick tutorial on how to run a live. So my name is Selena Barker. I am a career and life design coach, author of Burnt Out, founder of the Project You Journals, and this is my gorgeous space in Substack where I get to dive deep into conversation with people that really inspire me and people that I love. And I am so excited to have Toni Jones with us today. So I've written, oh, look at all these lovely, hi guys, come on in. So Toni, I'm going to put my notes up so I get this right. Toni's a former journalist turned bibliotherapist and the founder of the amazing Shelf Help Club. Those of you who are here live, pop a heart if you're in the Shelf Help Club. It's the world's first dedicated self-help book club, which has been running for almost a decade. So next year is going to be an exciting celebration, isn't it? But over the past 10 years, and I just love this so much, Toni has read 1,000 or more self-help books, interviewed hundreds of authors and wellbeing experts. But what I love about it is that she's also read these in community. And this is what I really want to dive into today. So she's been inspiring 25,000 plus people around the world to read and reflect and apply self-help development. And now she's written a book that actually I like to think she sort of wrote for me, because a few months ago I thought I must get Toni on the podcast. There it is. To talk about how reading all these books and reading them in community has actually really helped shape your life. And now you've actually written a whole book about it. So this is what we're going to be diving in today. But very important, you can only get this book if you order it before Tuesday. What date is Tuesday, Toni?
26th of May.
26th of May. Buy the book. If you are, and I really want to just express this, buy the book if you're a fan of Toni, if you follow Toni, if you're in the Shelf Help Club, if you just want to support female founders. I've got so many Pound Project books piling up because every time I see someone who I follow on Substack who's done a Pound Project, I'm just buy it. So please do just buy it, because it's a wonderful thing to get behind. So I've talked enough, Toni. Welcome.
Thank you. And I when I was asking you about what we were going to be talking about and which parts of the book and stuff, I love how you said to me, we might not even talk about what's in the book. If you like someone, just buy their bloody book.
Buy the book. I don't want to take the content out and tell people, buy the book, please.
You'll find out in the book. But I just really I love this about you, and I love this about Substack, and I love this about the space that we get to work in, which is that collaboration over competition. I'm feeling it so much right now with my own book out, and the support from people like yourself has been just amazing, and it's been worth it all. It's going to be great when people read the book, but this bit has been so fun for me, and really filled my cup.
What's really lovely, and this is why I love the Pound Project and how they're revolutionizing, showing how publishing can be done in collaboration, is that you see so many people, authors, come through the traditional publishing route and are just like, oh, that has not been an enjoyable experience. But you just seem so excited, and you can tell the energy behind it has obviously been collaborative and supported. And you've got to write the book that you wanted to write.
Yeah, and I think we can all be excited for 3 weeks, can't we? There's been quite a lot of work in getting to this 3 weeks. So there's a 3-week campaign which started on the 6th of May and the 26th of May. So that's the kind of buy the book promotion. Whereas I suppose more traditional publishing methods, as you know, as lots of people we know, have been through that process of, it's a long process. It's a long time before you even see your book in print, probably, from the kind of inception of the idea, then pitching it and writing it and all that stuff. I first pitched this idea to JP at the Pound Project at the end of summer last year, and within a month or so, he'd given me the May slot. So it was and I think that I love the speed of that, and I love the energy of it, and I love that. So you and I saw each other in real life this week, which was what a treat. And also I saw Nat Lou, who then just said, do you want to come on my podcast to talk about this book? So today I'm interviewing a podcast which will go out tonight, and I took the speed of that, even though I'm talking about self-help, and most of these themes are universal and a tale as old as time for human beings. I like the idea that if you have an idea, you can run with it, because things change so quickly, don't they? Like what we'll be talking about in the self-help world will look maybe very different next year. So I quite like
Yes.
the idea that I'm able to talk about the book and the subjects and connect with people like yourself about what's happening right now and what people are talking
Yeah,
about now and how it can affect people now.
yeah, it's very agile, which creators need. They need that sort of speed to be able to think of something, create it, get it out there next, you know?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
What I also was it was a great gift when I was invited onto the Bibliotherapists, your podcast with the wonderful Tanya Lynch. And as in preparation of it, you asked me to, that I was going to be going on there and talking about the books that had shaped me and like over the years, all the way back from when I first started reading self-help books, which was in university, the process of doing that I found to be really profound. Like I'd never stopped before to think about how much and which books had shaped me. And I was saying to you, Tony, I
Mhm.
think like that in itself could be a bibliotherapist or self help experience or course because I just found it such a deep and beautiful process. And I'm assuming that it was a similar process for you to really spend time reflecting back on how reading self-help books had shaped you. But this is what I was really keen to talk about today is your process of and how that not only how the books themselves shaped you, and I'd really like to know that. And you've got a lovely pile there that we can be dipping into, but how the
Do.
process of reflecting back on which books sort of impacted you, what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, it's been fascinating and really powerful, as you said, because when I realized I was writing this book, then I realized I had to get all the information out of my head into one place. So I've been systematically been through the 64 books we've read with Shelf Help as a community. So I started Shelf Help, it'll be 9 years ago in October. And originally we read one book every month. And then I realized feedback from the members, one self help book a month is quite a lot if you actually want to start processing it and applying it. So now
Mm.
we do one book every 2 months. So over that 8, nearly 9 years, we've read 64 books as a community. So my book will be number 65. Um, but I was reading what I needed at the beginning, very much so. Maybe now I'm a bit more collaborative. I let people have an opinion on what we'll read, and I do look to like what's coming out and what people are talking about and what's zeitgeisty and interesting. But when I look back, and so I got all the books out, and I post-it noted what month we read it, what book of the moment it was, and so looking over in my room here now, I have like these piles of the first 10, the next 10, the next 10, and then going through those and seeing that arc of what was going what was going through my head and heart at the time has been really interesting. And so the first few books were just a lot about um, just looking at ways to do things differently. I think it was lots of like, give me some tools, because I approached or I arrived at self help needing to change something. So I
Yeah.
was very much like, okay, give me something to change. The first book I read is called Change Your Life in 7 Days. I think that shell tells us where I was at
Yeah.
and how I motivate myself working as a journalist, right? So it's all about the deadline and something's just got to change. And then I got interviewed yesterday, and then I was saying how halfway through these books and this process with Shelf Help, there's a chunk where I got people to read Tony Robbins and then How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera, and then another really intense, like these are like brick books, and they're like about childhood trauma and about your inner child and about limiting beliefs. And there was a year where I obviously was like really in the thick of it, and didn't really appreciate the time. Now I look back and think, oh, that was probably a ride for some people that just thought they were coming to learn about feel the fear and do it anyway, or I don't know, something like that. So now I probably wouldn't read such heavy books maybe as a group. But people take something from all of them, I think. So
Yeah.
there's been books that I've chosen that quite often in the club, I say to people, do you want to help me choose the books? And the feedback is usually no, we like the fact that you're curating this experience.
Yeah.
And because I now talk to publishers and experts and authors, I kind of know what's coming up, and I'll read a book first person, if I think it's a good one to talk about with the community, I like being able to recommend. So an example of that is Stephen Bartlett. Before Diary of a CEO was Diary of a CEO, he had a book called Happy Sexy Millionaire. And so he was probably 27 when he wrote it. He's a 27-year-old tech bro millionaire. And most of my community are people like me of a certain age, reaching a certain point in life, not tech bro millionaires. And I think the feedback originally was like, what are we going to learn from this dude? Like, really, what's he going to teach us about life? And then we read the book, and it's about his personal story, his personal challenges and resilience and what he's learned. And that it's about the journey, not the destination, and all that stuff. And that most people at the end said, I would never have picked up that book, but I'm so glad I did. And I think that is really, that's the power of a book club, isn't it? That's the
Mm,
power of doing things in community, as you've spoken about already, is that you don't need, we don't know all the answers, and that's why we read books like this. So having that, I think, open-mindedness and open-heartedness to say, I might learn something from this, so let's give it a go. And then reading it with other people, you hear their perspectives and their life experiences, and not everyone will always agree on the book or always like the book. But I think if you can take one thing from a self-help book, then it's totally worth investing a bit of time in.
what do you think is usually the reason why people do choose, other than the ones who are obviously in your community and therefore it's being curated for them, but what do you think are often the reasons why people choose a particular self-help book? Is it because they're struggling, they're in some sort of transition or pain, and they go, I need help with this, I need to fix this, oh, this might be it? Is that usually, would you say, the reason why people pick up a book?
Yeah, I think I know that there's a certain tribe of us who love self development and will just and try lots of different things and be excited about the new Mel Robbins, for instance, or the new Marie Forleo or whatever's coming out. But I think for some people who really just want something to change, they probably need to be recommended a book, or they need to have seen someone else reading it and be leading by example. I think it's
Mm.
what when I first started self help, it's because I needed some more friends who were into self help, and I thought people would come with their mates, and they never did. They all came by themselves because
Yes.
they said, I'm into this stuff, but my mates aren't, like my real mates aren't. And so it was quite often lots of individuals who might have great friendship circles or might have great relationships, but it's just they were at a place where they were starting to explore these tools, I suppose, and
Mm.
so wanted to do it in community. So I feel like sometimes the idea of self-help can be quite off-putting to people, and the people who really need it won't ever get it because they don't want to be seen to pick up that book because they feel like it's like a failure or like a personal weakness that they've had to resort to a book on self-compassion or a book about visualization or whatever it is. So sometimes I think if you have a book like manifesting is cool at the moment, isn't it? And I
Mm.
suppose manifesting is quite positive because it's here's how to get what you want, and so that kind of language of it's not like here's how to fix something. It's about moving forward and about making change. So
Yeah.
I think that's important, isn't it? That kind of language.
Well, that's the life designing, which I was very excited to see is one part of your
I bet.
three-part framework, because actually it's weird. I don't know why people don't use the term life design more. I'm just like, but surely that's one of the main, I love personal growth and personal development, and I do it because I'm like, as I said to someone the other day, I'm here for growth. So, like, but I don't think that everyone is motivated by that, and that's fine. But life design seems to me, surely we all want to figure out how to design our lives so that we can feel better, have more energy,
Yeah.
flourish more, have more time to do the things we enjoy. Actually, without wanting to know all the parts of the whole content of the book, it would be lovely to know, to tell people who haven't heard about it yet, what this three-part framework is that's in your book that you've
Yeah,
developed.
sure. Yeah. So this is just so spent 10 years reading and doing and sharing self-help. I've read 1,000 self-help books. It's like, so what? Like what have I actually learned? Because I've read 1,000 self-help books for a reason. Like now it's my business and my job, and I'm still growing and learning and healing all the time. But originally, and for many years, I was reading self-help because I wanted to help myself. So when I look back and think, what have I actually learned and what can I actually tell people about this? because I think with self-help and with everything I do, I just want to make self-help really accessible and call it and rebrand it like personal growth, personal development, self-development, in that kind of positive language of something people can get excited about, life design, like treating yourself like a project. So when I actually look at all these books and all these ideas, a lot of it is the same messages repackaged,
Right.
and different people will relate to different ones. Like some people will really relate to Stephen Bartlett. Some people need to read the book to realize that they can relate to Stephen Bartlett. I've got Louise Hay here, You Can Heal Your Life, and
Yeah.
that's like a gorgeous book, which I love to recommend. But I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. Like I wouldn't recommend that to my brother. He wouldn't like he would it wouldn't make any sense to him. He wouldn't
Yeah.
understand it, and then he couldn't use it. So I'm like, really, what am I trying to share? Like, what is the important thing for people to understand if they want to create these happy, healthy, fulfilled, purpose-led lives? And I feel like it just all comes back down to the relationship we have with ourselves. So before we change anything, before we get into the detail of maybe a book about anxiety or a book about energy or a book about sleep or a book about inner child or whatever it is, it's like, what is the relationship with yourself like? Like, do you even know you have a relationship with yourself? Like I didn't 10 years ago. So the idea of people understanding they have this relationship with themselves and that they are in charge of it now. So whatever's happened has happened, but it might not be your fault,
Oh,
but you're
I
your own
love that.
responsibility.
That
You
they're
like
in
it?
charge of their relationship with themselves now.
Yeah,
That's so
totally.
good.
'Cause it's
That's really
empowering, isn't
powerful.
it? Rather than like, I did this, and I know lots of people do this, and I might be watching and do this still, but it's like it's everything else's fault. Like I talk about, I had a super stressful job, and I did work for a massive newspaper. That is a stressful job. That
Yeah.
is a fact.
Yeah.
However, I didn't do myself any favors by getting enough sleep and eating well and going to bed early. And I did myself no favors because my way of dealing with the stress was just going out, getting out my head, literally getting away from the stress, which is obviously not good for your body or soul or anything. So I think once I realized that I didn't want to I could just keep blaming my job or keep blaming my dad or keep blaming the fact that I'm just this kind of person. It's like, that's not helpful. That's not going to move me forward and that's not going to change anything. So the idea of, well, I'm my responsibility now. So I want to start taking care of that and getting intentional about that. So that's the life design part, isn't it? So the long answer, that's the long answer. What you asked was about the 3-step process. So the idea of the book's called You, The Beginner's Guide, and it's because I'm saying get to know yourself better. Because once you get to know yourself, you'll be able to have compassion for yourself. And this is what my hope for you. And you'll be able to look at what's happened and what's been with it from a sense of, you can treat it as information and as data. And you can use that information to then make some changes going forward. So I call it the connected self method. So step 1 is connecting with your past self. So that's self-discovery. That would be like journaling, therapy for some people, looking backwards to see patterns, to look at what your influences have been, to look at the way that you're kind of showing up in life now and behaving in life and what that might have been, what might have led you to this place and person that you are. So that's step
Mm.
1, self-discovery. And the question there is, what has shaped you? And then step 2 is life design. So we're going backwards and then forward. So once you are at that place of, you can kind of look at yourself, I suppose, and your background with some compassion, then I think this is the juicy bit where you can go, okay, so this is my trajectory currently, but it doesn't have to be. So what do I want that future to look like? And for me, I didn't know the answer to this, and this is what started the whole process. So I got asked that lovely juicy question of, you wake up in your dream life, what does it look like? And I didn't know the answer. So I kind of had to go backwards to understand why I'd never thought about this question and why I didn't think I deserved a nice life and all that lovely gnarly stuff. So that's self-discovery. And then and then I was like, right, okay, so now I want to start crafting this vision of a life that I can then start moving towards. So using visualization, looking at my values and my purpose and my energy, like what does light me up? Like what is like, I love like the Ikigai, the book, the idea of like, why do you get out of bed in the morning? And it can be your job, but it doesn't have to be, it doesn't, and I don't think we all need a huge purpose necessarily, but understanding a little bit about what that might be is really important. So that's what I talk about in the book. So that's part 2, which is And the question there is, who are you becoming? Which is my favorite question from the book. So there's three different prompts, three big prompts. And who are you becoming? I just think is juicy, because you can look at that question, and if you don't like the answer, it's not a nice question, really. It can be powerful
Mm,
and affect you quite deeply, really, if you think, I don't want to be that person. But then that's information, and then you can make some changes, right? But until you shine some awareness on it, how will you ever know that who you're becoming?
yeah.
And I talk a little bit about the idea of we're all becoming someone. And you said before, why wouldn't people want to design their life? It's because life is happening. You're moving forward, or you're moving somewhere, whether you get intentional about it or not. So the moment you decide to take control of it is the moment that you can shape it and make it as juicy and delicious and healthy, as happy as you can. So that's the looking forward. And then part 3 is life support. So that is, and what do you need right now? So I think this is where you and I probably spend a lot of time. It's where Shelf Help Club spend a lot of time reading books about its tools and strategies for maintaining maintaining a good life, or
Mm.
maybe sometimes you'll need shoring up. So I suppose it's habits, routines, rituals, connections, your social health, spiritual health, physical health, self-care, boundaries, all this stuff that we would probably call self-help in the main. I would call life support, as in you've worked out where you came from, you've looked at where you want to go. So what do you need now to get you there? Like, how are you going to move there? And what do you need to change? What do you need to stop doing? What can you continue doing? And all of this is just inviting people, I suppose, to be aware of these different elements of themselves and be aware that there's things that they can do to improve this relationship with themselves at all times.
I just love how I suppose I thought that you were going to write about how these books have shaped you. And I thought you were going to take some of the key lessons. And I was saying to you before, like on a WhatsApp voice note the other day, that, the amount that you have read is probably even more than if you were to do a PhD, like the level to which you have studied all of and also the way you don't just read it, but you bring it into your community, you ask questions, you interview the author, like the depth to which you have gone. But what I love is that out of it, you have created what sounds like, I mean, it really speaks to me. It's so, we're like very much like preaching from the same hymn sheet or whatever the
Mm.
saying is. But like it sounds so wise and so nourishing, and asking things like what has shaped you rather than what's happened to you. And,
Mm.
what are you becoming? Ooh, that could, like you say, if you're like a workaholic who's burning out, who's like never has any time for themselves, that is going to be a very important, challenging question, but one that's also held by that's that's if you but you can change that. You
Yeah.
can change the trajectory that you're on, and it sounds like it's really putting the showing people the power that they do have, and I think
Yeah.
that a lot of the time it's that people feel so powerless and so helpless, and they're
Yeah.
just swept along, and then can sometimes think that self-help is about fixing yourself as if you're flawed, which is, of course,
Mm.
we're not. And we're supposed to be gloriously imperfect because, again, how else could we grow? Um, but God, this is like now definitely buy the book, because actually I think people really need this. Not just to support a female founder and a creator and all the rest of it, but wow, I'm so excited. So we can get the book and then come and do it, become members of Shelf Help Club, and then go through it with you, the actual creator of the book. I mean, this is
Yeah.
so exciting.
That's what we're going to do in June. So the book sales finish at the end of May the 26th, and then from June we're going to be going through each of the 3 steps together. And I have like a few different authors. So Marianne Power's coming to do a session with us. Do you know Marianne Power? They wrote Help
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
So that was
Amazing. I love Marianne.
one of the books we read. Yeah, and I got to interview people like Paul McKenna. So I did interview some of my favorite authors for the book. But obviously, in the book, it's a pocket-sized book, right? It's
Yeah.
supposed to be it's supposed to be non-threatening and like easily accessible. So I've only been able to put in like snippets of these conversations I had with amazing authors like Paul McKenna, David Hamilton, Shari Azadi, Susie Redding, all people that we love, and then I've recorded the video, so I'll be sharing all the audio and all that kind of stuff as part of the Shelf Help experience of the read along. So that's just extra juicy because then we're able to do it in community. But I think your point about kind of getting swept along in things, I think sometimes when we feel like, if we're like when I was at my lowest point, I did pick up this self-help book because I just, well, what have I got to lose? But I wouldn't have gone into the self-help section and just known what to pick. I think it can be so overwhelming. And when you're in a place where you maybe just think something needs to change, I don't want to keep behaving like this, or I don't want to keep doing the same thing, but I don't know what, then it's hard, isn't it, sometimes to be faced with all that information and all that potential change and help and noise. So what I try to do is keep it super simple. And it's all about just checking in with yourself. It's asking some big questions, but you can read the question, and people listening to this now, watching this now, they can noodle on that, who am I becoming, on the way home on the bus, can't they? Or just as they're walking to pick up the kids from school. It's like, these are questions that only you have the answers to.
Yeah.
And the books are great tools. And I mean, I'm not even that purist about reading the books. Like, watch the TED Talks, listen to the podcasts, like watch YouTube. These are great tools, but ultimately, it's all to support that relationship you have. And
Yeah.
so, I think just knowing that, like, this is the guide really that I wish I'd have had, rather than just start inhaling. I mean, I'm glad I've read all these books and it's like created this amazing life for me. But I did just do everything. I was at that point where I'd started therapy, started yoga, went on retreats, did eye gazing, like did the Bikram challenge for 30 days, all this kind of like insane stuff. When if you put it all together, it's quite insane. But it's because I was just trying to cause a change. And
Yeah,
I
but
think
you
what I tried
needed
to do
that.
here,
But you needed that. I think sometimes when we're like, and I definitely, whenever I'm going through a transition, I'm like deep diving into all of the stuff. I'm doing it all. I'm reading every minute. I'm listening to the podcast on this and got about 3 different self-help books open at any one
mm,
time. And then other times when it's sort of like, I'm in a gentler part of the roller coaster of life, then I'm less so. But I think these things, when we're going through transition,
yeah,
or we're ready for change, we're throwing stuff at ourselves to sort of like almost activate the system. It's
yeah,
just like, let's throw some stuff at this and just see what shifts, see what happens. And it's all about experimenting, isn't it, anyway? Because you
yes,
just don't know. And often I think it's a combination of them. So you might be reading, because I do also think that sort of the reading and even talk therapy, those are really powerful tools, and therapy and self-help books obviously being having different roles. But sometimes on the yoga mat, that's where you
yeah,
embody some of that stuff, or doing, I don't know, a challenging strength training session where something clicks in that you read about. I remember reading somewhere like a million years ago saying that it's not until our body until we embody a lesson, or experience it through our
mm,
body, that we really get something. And, or certainly for some people, it has to be a somatic way of
yeah,
experiencing things to really get the lesson. So I actually think, yeah, don't never wish away all the million things you threw at yourself at the time when you
yeah,
needed it, because I think that's exactly what you needed at the time. And now the
yeah,
beauty of it, like I was saying to you, like doing a PhD, is like you've now distilled a really powerful framework. Like, I'm really excited to, and I don't often say that about self-help books. I'm quite picky about my self-help books. But this, I'm like, oh, I think this is one that I would really look
oh.
forward to doing. I genuinely mean that, like,
Well, I
so
feel honoured, and I do, and because it's 10,000 words, like this, it's the sixth of the size of a normal self-help book. So the challenge there is getting all these big concepts into a pocket-sized book. But it also means that people, I think probably it'd be great if people could just flick through it, read through it the first time, and then go back to the bits that spoke to them, or
yeah.
go back to the exercises. Like, there's like a few different exercises on like values or shame. Like, people, there's also like there's big stuff in there. And
Yeah.
so it's not just all like light and fluffy and do a little prompt about your dream morning. It's like, because some of this stuff does go deep. But we need to be talking about it. Like, I've revisited loads of Brené Brown because years ago, Brené Brown was a massive influence on me, and lots of people, I'm sure, were watching this. And I kind of I haven't forgotten about her, but I don't really think about her constantly like I used to, like her and Glennon Doyle and Oprah. When I first started going down these rabbit holes, and now revisiting all her stuff, it's like that. We watched the TED Talk the other day in the community, and it's like this is 16 years old nearly. The first TED Talk about the power of vulnerability, and even now listening to it, like it gives you goosebumps. But at the time, no one talked about that.
God.
She said, like she was like, people want me to come on stage, but don't mention the shame stuff because that's not, we don't want to talk about that. We just want to help people be more confident or have
Yeah.
more courage. And she's like, well, you can't do one without the other. And so I think we're all moving on, thank God, and the conversations keep moving on. But a lot of these stories we tell ourselves, we don't move on from, do we?
Yeah, absolutely. And God, that TED Talk by Brené Brown, I listened to it just the other day as well for the first
Did
time
you?
in years. And it was, God, like, but these concepts, and this is the power of self-help books. And I do want to talk to you in a moment about, therapy versus self-help, but not versus, but you know what I mean. But the power of a self-help book, it's giving us new perspectives. It's giving us frameworks to understand ourselves and the world around us.
Mm.
It's giving us concepts that can awaken something in us. Like I
Yeah.
think it's so powerful. I was just listening to Martha Beck's The Way of Integrity, and I've had that sitting in my Audible list. Like I'd bought it years ago and I had not yet listened to it. I was like, not quite ready. And suddenly I was ready. I didn't want to hear the stuff she had to say before because I knew there
Ah.
were things in my life where I probably needed to address and I wasn't ready to. But now I'd already started addressing them. I was like, oh, now I'm ready for it. But what I did want to ask you, because you've done therapy. What do you think is the interplay of do you think some people lean too heavily on self-help and where actually they need to go to therapy? Do you think the two work really nicely together? I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I went to therapy because my husband said if I didn't, he was leaving. That's not the way for
That was
most
the
people to go to
motivation.
therapy. By the way, that's exactly what you're not supposed to do. And I hated it, like because I never spoke about my feelings, and I didn't intend to really, and I didn't like the fact I was having to pay someone to listen to me talk about how I felt. But at the end of every session, I would just say, "And what's my homework? Can I have a book to read?" Like I'm just so in my head. That's just very my style. So I feel like, and there's loads of really good self-help books I think that are written by therapists. So
Mhm.
I think reading a book by a therapist that you may have seen on Instagram or may have heard of your friends talking about is actually quite a nice introduction to the therapy speak and the kind of what to expect at therapy. And again, I found it. It found me. I was foisted upon it at a moment of crisis. But like the idea that it's a tool, and these are all tools, I think. And
Yeah,
when I spoke to Natalie Lou, she was talking about how she doesn't actually read that many self-help books because she didn't find they spoke to her. And I thought, well, she's like a self-help expert of decades, and but she said she tried all different tools. So she was trying more somatic stuff,
me
and
too.
the same, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
interesting. So I think for me and for anyone who is in their head a lot, like books are great because it feels like you have something kind of tangible and a plan to follow, and this expert in your hands. Whereas I think some of the other stuff might be the book might kind of lead you there. So that's what has happened to me. So therapy happened in tandem with the books. But then since reading more of the books and learning about like mind body connection, for instance, I then started doing more somatic work and really understanding, like you said earlier, about the kind of the body holding on to a lot of this, like this information and these stories. And when you said about you don't know you've internalized a lesson until you feel it in your body,
Mm.
I'm going to give you an example. So the other day when I came down to meet you in London, I dropped the dog off at doggy daycare and I'm driving to the station because I live in Norfolk, which is a few hours away, and I just felt really content and happy and peaceful. And I was driving to London to see you and to meet a load of people I met with, all of whom are authors, published authors. And previously, and even a couple of years ago, I would have had that that feeling here. I don't know if anyone relates to it, but that feeling that I used to have
Mm.
every day going into work of just nerves, and like I learned to push through it, and I spent 20 years pushing through that feeling of like, oh, I don't know why. I'm just, and it wasn't. I don't think it was. It's not scared. It's just like that imposter syndrome, or just like I just don't know if I'm good enough to go to this thing. And I was just driving along, just thought, I'm just looking forward to it. There's nothing that can happen today. There's nothing that anyone can say to me that will get rid of this feeling. And I had a little moment of like, huh, that's like, and I don't know, there was no like big light bulb moment of like, yes, I fixed my low self esteem, and I'm sure at the time it's going to ping back a lovely little feeling in the throat. But I very much realize like my body is telling me, you know this, you know it,
Mm.
like, and that there's some part of you that's at peace with that path out, that is at peace with the fact that you are equal to other people, just because you are, just because you're a human. And I talk in the book about like self-compassion and the idea of just giving yourself that grace, that if you're feeling bad or if you're struggling, it's like you are just a human being. We all are, and we all find different things tough. So I think, yeah, that was a real somatic kind of moment of just
Mm.
peace, and that was so lovely.
So lovely. And you know what it's made me think is that, you know how they say it's so important the people you surround yourself with, because it really impacts on how you think of yourself, what you think is possible. I think it's the same to be said about ideas. You know, the ideas you the ideas you sort of in you consume, or that you surround yourself
Yeah.
with, really do have an impact. And if you're spending a lot of time curating the books that you ingest and the ideas that you are, and particularly if you are someone who takes things in through thinking and, noodles them around and tries them on and finds way to apply them and probably experiment with them, then of course over 10 years that is going to have a huge impact, so that you do one day go, oh, look at that. Look at how I'm feeling about this situation, which once I would have been so nervous about. And it just shows how
Yeah.
much that relationship with yourself, taking charge of that relationship with yourself, um, what a difference that can make. But that does show the power of the ideas that you're tuning into,
Mm.
like a radio station,
Yeah.
and not plastering over, not sort of toxic positivity. Like, you do need to also somehow be applying them, which is a huge part of what, the Shelf Help Club is about. But sometimes there are definitely books I've read that have felt healing, and often they're
Mm.
memoir books, interestingly.
Mm.
What's Jessica Huey's book? I'm just going to look behind me. Is it called Purpose?
Purpose.
Purpose, yeah,
Yeah.
because my bookshelf is there. Um, that book, I remember that was one of the first books I read where I felt like that felt like a transformative experience. Also,
Right.
Emma Gannon's The Success Myth, I felt this very potent. I was like, there's
Mm.
a potency to these words. And then, of course, because I'm very sort of like, think I'm a witch, I'm like, that is the witchcraft of
Mm.
words. And then I get all
Alchemy.
into alchemy. Exactly. Have you found that with some of the books that you've read, that if you feel like it created a sort of alchemy within you with the experience of reading it?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the potency of people's stories, isn't it? I think. So I didn't really think I was into memoir, and Tanya Lynch, lovely Tanya, who I host a bibliotherapist with, is obsessed with memoir. So, and most of the people that she introduces me to via bibliotherapists are memoirists or talk about it a lot. And I was a bit like, I think I need to get on this train, because I'm a midlife woman now. I think I should be reading memoir. And then I looked at my bookshelves in this whole process, and I was like, the memoirs I read have all been about addiction or booze or very hedonistic lifestyles gone wrong, or yeah, generally gone wrong. And they are memoirs, but they're in a very niche. And this was when I was trying to drink less,
Yeah.
or working on and entering my sober curious era. And I thought they are the ones that have impacted me at like at a cellular level, I feel like, because look at reading them from a point of view of either I didn't get that bad. Sometimes I felt like that. I was like, okay, well, at least I didn't go there. But mostly it was like, I just feel so sorry for these people, and I feel so compassionate. And I read in the book thinking, don't do it, don't do it, don't pick up the phone, or don't. drink that next drink or don't whatever it is. And then you feel was able to give compassion to myself because I'd given it to these people that I'd never met who were talking about their story. And so I think the potency in memoir, especially, is that you can really, you have these strong emotions to these people, and you then can maybe start applying them to yourself.
Yeah, which is why Marianne Power's book, Help Me, is so powerful because it is, I
Yes,
know, well, it's there. Yeah, because it's exactly that. It's memoir, it's sort of very meta. It's self-help memoir, but talking a memoir about exploring all these self-help modalities. And yeah, that's another one had a real impact on me. I just wanted to read something from Sharon. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. The combination of the many self-help books and therapies and other modalities lead to the breakthrough moment. Exactly. Some of us need more input or have to spend time ruminating. Giving oneself grace is so
Mm.
important. Beautifully put. And I think different, whether it's personality types, I love sort of personality types, but different energetic frequencies, you could say as well. I think or different stages of your life as well require different types of input, different modalities, to
Yeah.
sort of embody those and or take on, those new perspectives and new ideas that can actually really bring about a shift in your relationship with yourself and how you view the world, can probably create new neurological pathways. I mean, I don't know because I'm not an expert in that kind of thing, but yeah, that's really
But
beautiful,
yeah,
Sharon.
because you'll regroove it. You're making new pathways. But then a new making a new pathway isn't enough. You need to keep going up and down it, up and down. It's like putting a groove in a field. If you just go through it once, it's still not a road, is it? You need to
Yeah.
keep going back and forth and back and forth. And you need to stop using that other pathway slash road slash very bad analogy here.
Mm.
But you need to. So the idea, like with reading about drinking less and changing your habits around that, and things about behavior change. It's like you need to keep doing the hard thing until it's not hard anymore, and then the other kind of one will kind of fall away. But it's not always easy, and we can't expect it to always be easy. And as to your point about the different modalities, and was it Sharon who's
Yeah.
wrote that lovely comment? Yeah, the idea that some of this stuff won't work for you. Like just because you and I love this book, some people might read it and it doesn't relate. But that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're bad at self help. It doesn't mean you're bad at life. It just means that, like anything, there are different ways to. If you think about ourselves like a project or an experiment, it's like the best projects hit walls at different times, don't they? And then
Yeah.
we pivot or we iterate or we try something new or we get different resources or we ask someone for their advice or their opinion. So I think it's important to remember that not everything will work for everybody and that you need different things at different times.
Yeah.
So I talk a little bit sometimes about when I first started sharing my feelings. So I started going to therapy, started reading the self-help. And because I'm someone who's in my head a lot and I'm a lot about give me the information and eventually I'll start paying attention. So I'm like, okay, I understand at conscious level to start sharing with my friends, apparently, because that's why we're friends. And so I'd never really done it before. I've always like been a listener, and that's probably why we were friends. But then I shared something with a friend, and she didn't know what to do with the information, and so didn't really respond at that moment in a positive and empathetic and lovely way because she literally was in shock. I think I was talking to her about having kids or not or something, and it was quite like a deep conversation. And because I've never talked about anything about kids to anyone, then I think she just was like, "Huh, hmm." And then I thought, well, that sucks. I'm never doing that again because obviously that's not what
Oh
I
God,
expected.
yeah.
And it's like I can even got the feeling now. I'm like, that's so embarrassing. It's like I kind of like like took my clothes off and somebody went, "Oh, great," and moved on.
But
And
don't you think on some unconscious level you chose a person that would give you that exactly the kind of
I don't
response which
know.
your inner shitty committee would have been like, "You see, this is why we don't share our feelings. Never do that again.
This is
Thank
why we
you."
don't do it.
Yeah,
It's like the worst.
exactly.
But this person who's a lovely friend of mine,
Yeah.
then the next conversation we had, she was like, "I can't believe how I responded to what you told me. I'm so sorry, but literally didn't know what to do."
She was playing
And
into the
so
role.
in the yeah, yeah. So it was. So I think I'm just saying that as a way to like sometimes it goes wrong, and like Help Me is such a good book because Marianne Power is such a brilliant writer, and she does things like the rejection therapy and that's but stuff like that is, and even me with this whole book process is like asking people if like, can I come on your podcast? Would you like to feature my book? It's like at the beginning of doing that, I was like cringing so badly and like sending these messages, but I had 100 to get through on my spreadsheet. So by number 75, it was just an email. Like, and it was like, and it was yes, no, maybe, great. That goes in the next spreadsheet. And I thought that was a reminder to me that it's a lot of this is about doing things that are hard until they become easy. And that includes working on yourself. It includes, I know, like it's hard to talk about our mental health and our emotional health because it feels so at that conversation you feel so vulnerable and you feel so naked, but it's like, but when someone does respond the right way, or even sometimes the fact of getting off your chest, isn't it, it's like that's such a that can just that feeling is so powerful in that you are feeling supported and seen and heard in some way. So I think yeah, just remembering that there's different tools for different people at different stages, and like the best way to treat all of this, I just think, is like treat like an experiment, and
Absolutely.
then you can't be then you don't beat yourself up if something doesn't go to plan. It's like, oh, let's try something different. Just
Yeah.
because everyone else read this book and loved it, it might not be right for me right now. Like you just talked about a book that you weren't ready to, Martha Beck, but
Yeah.
now, and everyone talks about Martha Beck as being this amazing life coach, right? So, but you weren't ready to read it until you were ready.
No, exactly. And actually, didn't I think Donna Lancaster, didn't she say this to you in Bibliotherapist? I'm sure she said she doesn't actually often recommend books to people because she feels, although
Yeah,
she did actually recommend Falling Upwards by Richard Rohr, the book that I then recommended to you.
yeah,
She did recommend that to me, but she said it's because it's a timing thing. And actually, people need to be ready for a
yeah,
book because it's it does take effort to wrap your head around stuff that, self-help books, and they should be challenging. They should be revealing that uncomfortable stuff.
yeah,
Otherwise, what is it? Just platitudes telling you what you already know. So it does take effort to commit to making a way through a self-help book. So I do think that it needs to be something that is calling to you, or obviously there are some people. Well, that's the thing with the self-help club, though. I would say that's slightly different because they're stepping into a shared experience, a shared exploration. So they're bringing curiosity, and they're putting trust in you and going, we love how you're leading this journey and curating this journey. So yeah, I mean, I would not grab for that Stephen Bartlett book. Like if I was
no,
in a bookshop, that is not where my hand would be going. But how brilliant to go, no,
yeah,
this is the one we're reading. And then people are like, because it's important to not just be in our own bubble of
yeah.
hearing the same stuff that appeals to us, and to go for the sort of unexpected um
Definitely,
self-help book.
definitely, and it's Sharu Azadi, the author, and also my friend, said to me
Love
that
her.
thing she found really frustrating is that when women write a book, it's self-help and it goes in the self-help section, and when men write a book about pretty much exactly the same thing, it goes in productivity, or it goes in like the business section. So
Yes.
she said, because she's a behavior change specialist and a psychologist, and so what she talks about is how, I mean, it is the kindness method. So that's the self-helpness of it, but these are they're evidence-based tools that addiction specialists in the NHS use.
Yeah.
And so because she's a woman and she's written it and called it the kindness method, I suppose it gives it that slant. But she said, isn't that interesting? So it's like it's immediately seen as remedial versus like a positive growth tool, which is what it would be seen as if a guy wrote pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought that's really interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think so as well. I've noticed that, and how the fact that a man has written it, there seems to be a sense that it seems more automatically considered a bit more highbrow in the way it's sort of spoken about, in the kind of the way it's reported on, and it's like, interesting. So, well,
Yeah,
or
and also how we sometimes whether you'd be happy to hold it, like to kind of be seen reading it. It's that kind of I think, yeah, if you're seen to be working on yourself from a point of view of I want to get better at doing something, that's very different, isn't it? And that's very different how you talk to yourself. I want to get better at doing life is very different than I'm broken and I need and I'm doing life wrong. Like both the same thing, really, but it's like that language and that reframe. So I kind of feel like I think what I say in the book and what I say is it's self help isn't about fixing ourselves. It's about understanding ourselves and then designing a life that fits. So let's work out who you are, how you got here. Let's work out what you want from this lovely, juicy life, and then design your life around that and
Mm.
around who you want to be.
I have actually one last question, and this to take something you said right at the start. How when you first started thinking about the life you really wanted to live, you couldn't picture anything, you couldn't dream, and that's such an interesting one. And I was like, why isn't everyone talking about life design? But actually, in order to get there, you have to have a vision of the life that you want to live. And so often, it's true. People will say, "I don't know, I don't know what I want."
Hmm.
What do you think, or even which were some of the books that, and I think you said that you didn't sort of even think you were deserving of having a sort of dream of,
Yeah.
what would you say were the books or that helped to awaken that? Like,
So I think the idea of planning for a brilliant, juicy future, it's that you have to feel that you're capable of getting it, but you also have to feel that you're worthy of it. So when I interviewed Paul McKenna for the book, I he knows this story. I've told him enough times, but the idea that I asked him about the importance of that question, like why is it so important? Why do you start your book with it? And he talked about it's like taking the limiters off. It's not a goal, because a goal, you set a goal from what you think you expect you can achieve, whereas dreaming and visualizing is what it could be, anything's possible. And he said for some people that's really delicious and that's a brilliant way to start kind of moving towards that life. He said for people who don't think they're worthy of that life, the self-worth pit needs to come first. So
yeah,
that's the kind of going backwards, and the self-discovery and the self-reflection and understanding, like I don't know, say, like when we talk about this dream morning, and I think, God, I'd love to wake up on a beach every day. And it's like, don't be ridiculous. People like you don't do that. No one in your family's done that.
yeah.
How are you going to afford that? Like people who wake on the beach are probably rich, and all rich people are assholes. It's like when you actually start digging into like, why can't I answer this long question about what I'd like to do tomorrow? It's actually a lot of it is about what I think about myself, and it's like self-worth piece and that kind of valuing yourself, and then setting goals and setting intentions and like designing your life from that place. You're going to design a life, or aim for or hope for a life that comes from a much more expansive place and a much more positive place, aren't you? If you think I'm a person who is worthy of of a nice life, and I'm a person who's worthy of the life that this person's got. And so in the book, I talk a bit about expanders, and expanders are so important to me because they are like any manifestors that on here, or anyone that knows a bit about manifesting. The idea of seeing people do what you want to do, it kind of sends messages to your brain. There's neuroscience behind it. So Dr. Tara Swart I love her book, The Source, and I love the To Be Magnetic community that Lacey Phillips runs, and she works with her. And it's all about like, look at people who are doing what you might want to do, or what you're curious about. And once you've seen people doing it, it tells your brain this could be possible for me. So as
And
well
people
as
like you as well. I think it's important for it to
yes,
be
yeah,
people
it's
who
great if we can do
seem
that.
similar to you rather than people,
Yeah,
like you say, who have gazillion pounds and it's like, well, it's easy for them because then you can just dismiss it. But you need to find examples of people, because
yeah,
that combats that inner shitty committee that's just like, well, it never happen for you. And you go, ah, well, look,
they did
here's
it.
someone like me in that situation and they did it. So ta-da!
Yeah, yeah,
It starts dismantling the hard truths that you've been sort of, living by. And I
yeah,
just
sure.
wanted to say here that Eva's saying, you helped me so much, Tony, with your connected self sessions, because Eva was saying we often haven't
Mm,
allowed ourselves to dream and don't think we're worthy of a good life, which is exactly what you were saying. But Eva, who I know well, was, yeah,
love
saying your
Eva.
connected self sessions have really helped with that. So it's so important to have that sometimes before you can then even be able to dream, and for the dreams to be able to come. Really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why. And originally, so I did with a load of my shelf fees at the beginning of the year. I did the U process, and I did it as a. They weren't guinea pigs. There was lots of like planning that went into it, but they were my case studies of like how what's the feedback? How does this work? How is it impacting you? And originally, I did past, present, and future, but then I switched it around because in the sessions and in the conversations in the coaching element of it, it was like looking at where we've been and then looking at what we need now to then look forward didn't make sense so much as kind of looking forward first and then being like, okay, now I know, and now I've got this vision. What do I need to get me there? So the
Mm.
habits and all that, it's a lot easier to break a hard habit or to create a healthy new habit when you have a vision of why you're doing it. It's like
Yeah.
like people who are running the marathon because they're supporting a charity, or people who are decided to stop smoking because their kids they want to be around for their kids to grow up and that kind of thing. When you have that kind of why and you have something to pull you towards, I think it's easier to do the hard stuff, isn't it?
So with the connected self sessions you did with Eva, for example, was that about sort of connecting with yourself on a deeper level so that you can now allow yourself to dream?
Yeah, so we'd go through the process. So the
Right,
first
the whole
session is like,
process.
what's going on for you right now? So for like with the life coaching session, it would be like, what are your challenges? Like, where are you? What are you looking to work on right now? And then the next session would be like connecting with the past self, then connecting with this future self, and then connecting with the present self. So by the time you've gone through that, it's a process that we go through in the book.
Oh, I see.
Really, yeah.
The
So the book
different
is like
selves.
yeah, yeah. So that's the connected self. So I talk about it as like the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol, like
Oh
the
my
ghosts of
God.
Christmas, past, future, and present. Except it's me with Brené Brown quotes,
Well,
introducing you to these different versions of yourself. But I think people can we know what that, don't we? And also
yes.
the power of it. So the power of Scrooge looking back at where and we understand him better then because he's come from he had a hard life as have most of us in different ways, right? So then we have compassion for Scrooge even, and then we look and then he looks at what's going on now, and then this is your life if things don't change, and looking in the future, and then and then makes the changes in the now. So I do really like that as a kind of exemplar. Is that what we call that?
I
Exemplar?
Sure, I love that, and do you
Sure.
know sure, we'll call it an exemplar, you
We're
can
talking
call it what
about
you want.
Dickens. Are
It
you pleased with me on our
I've
podcast?
That is that's amazing, and you know what? Again, whenever I start a coaching journey with someone, I get them to do a back to the future exercise where they imagine they are their a
Mm,
happy, healthy 80-year-old self looking back to today
mm,
and all that and just imagining, well, what did you fill your life with? What are the adventures you went on? What is the work that you did that you are proud of? And just sort of seeing what emerges on the page. Some people write one sentence answers, others write pages and pages of answers. But it is about connecting with that future self to then inform,
mm.
okay, and then coming back to today, right? So, what are we going to do? What needs to happen? And what you're going
Yeah,
to focus on next. But oh my goodness, Ruth is also saying this conversation has been so positive, lots to think about. I now can't wait to receive my copy of you. So this
thank
is
you, Ruth.
exactly. I can't wait to receive my copy of you. I want you
Thank
to know
you.
I ordered it the moment it came out. So I
Before
hope
you
I'll be
even
one
knew
of the
what was in it.
first.
Thank you, I appreciate.
Um, but yeah, this feels you know what's so exciting about this is it now feels to me, just to me personally, is the start of a journey. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come and sign up to Shelf Help Club and come and do it because I want to do it. I want to do it in community. I run a community
Mm,
and I love it
yeah,
so much. So to be part of a community that someone else is
come and hang out.
holding,
That would
yeah,
be
would be
so cool.
so lovely. And oh my goodness, I'm just so I think it is like really congratulations. I think you have developed a really powerful framework. Like I can
Thank you.
just hearing about it, I'm like, wow, it feels very nourishing, very not scary, very undaunting,
Yeah, I
which
hope
I think is
so.
so important, very accessible wherever you're at on your journey, um, and really powerful. So
Thank
I'm
you.
excited for June and what is gonna come out of it for me and
Ye
everyone else, of course.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant, isn't it? And so I do want it to be simple enough Like it is super powerful. It's powerful. Saying, yeah, I've done it for 10 years and I've read 1,000 books. It's like, that's everyone, all the comments on that. I wrote a piece for the Telegraph and they're like, who needs to read 1,000 self-help books? It's ridiculous. And obviously that is like quite full on and intense, but it can be quite simple. This stuff it can be as simple as the right question at the right time, the right book at the right time, the right person listening to you at the right time. So I think let's just give ourselves as many opportunities as possible to create these lovely lives, right? So use all the tools as and when needed. And the only way that we can really do that is by learning about them and by having them in our pocket ready to, which is what you do so beautifully. It's like, teach people these skills. Let's teach ourselves these skills. And then when we need them, we've got them.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, Toni, thank you so much. I am so excited. So looking forward to getting your book. Congratulations. And I'll see you in the Shelf Help Club. And when I put this up, the recording out on Substack and on the podcast, I'll put all the links of how people can. I'm going to put it up as soon as I possibly can because I know we've got a deadline before we miss out.
Go.
We miss out on getting the book at all. So to be clear, this book will not be available after Tuesday, the 26th of May. So it's now.
That's it.
Never.
We have a deadline, people.
Now and never.
Change your life
and
in
the
5
merch.
days.
And the merch as well. The wonderful
and the
merch.
Which is there on my back of the door there for anyone who's watching.
Exactly.
You can see yellow baseball caps.
Love it. Perfect for summer. Toni, thank you so much. Actually, if people are just like, well, tell me where to go right now, where can they go right now to get the book?
poundproject.co.uk/you is where to get the book. And if you want to come and hang out with Shelf Help, then we're on Substack, obviously. Well, not obviously, but we're on Substack, Shelf Help Book Club, and Instagram, shelfhelp.club. So yeah, come and join us, Selena. That'd be so cool. Love to have you.
Yay, I can't wait. All right, Toni, well, I'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us live. This has been really gorgeous. Mwah. Lots of love.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.